udanum hanapik sa tagayo sa kagpababa ingana waya waya uway.
The flood and the origin of the mountains. One year when the rainy season should have come, it did not. Month after month passed and no rain fell. The river grew smaller and smaller day by day until at last it disappeared entirely.
Then the people were happy, for there was plenty of water. And they brought much food and made a great feast. But while they were feasting, it grew dark and it began to rain. The river also kept rising until at last it overflowed its bank. Then the people became frightened and tried to stop up the spring in the river, but could not do so. Then the old man said, "We must flee to the mountains, for the river gods are angry and we shall all be drowned." So the people fled towards the mountains, and all but two of them were overtaken by the water and drowned. The two of them who escaped were a brother and sister named Wigan and Bugan. Wigan on Mount Amoyo and Bugan on Mount Kalawitan. And the water continued to rise until all the earth world was covered except only the peaks of these two mountains.
The water remained on earth for a whole season, or from rice planting to rice harvest. During that time, Wigan and Bugan lived on fruits and nuts from the forest that covered the tops of the two mountains. Bugan had fire which at night lit up the peak of Mount Kalawitan, and Wigan knew that there was someone else alive besides himself. He had no fire and suffered much from the cold. At last the water receded from the earth and left it covered with the rugged mountains and deep valleys that exist today. And the solitary brother and sister, looking down from their respective peaks, were filled with wonder at the sight.
As soon as the earth was dry, Wigan journeyed to Mount Kalawitan, where he found his sister Bugan, and their reunion was most joyous. They descended the mountain and wandered about until they came to the beautiful valley that is today the dwelling place of the Banawal clan. Here, Wigan built a house. When the house was finished, Bugan dwelt in the upper part and Wigan slept beneath. Having provided for the comfort of his sister, Wigan started to find if there were no other people left alive in the earth world. He traveled about all day and returned to the house at night to sleep. He did this for 3 days. As he was coming back on the third evening, he said to himself that there were no other people but themselves. And if the world was to be repopulated, it must be through them. At last, Bugan realized that she was pregnant. She burst into violent weeping and, heaping reproaches on her head, ran blindly away towards the east, following the course of the river. After traveling a long way and being overcome with grief and fatigue, Bugan sank down on the bank of the river and lay there trembling and sobbing.
After having quieted herself somewhat, she arose and looked around her, and to her surprise, saw an old man with a long white beard sitting on a rock near her. He approached her and said, "Do not be afraid. I am Macnongan, and I am aware of your trouble. I'd come to tell you that it is all right." While he was speaking, Wigan, who had followed her sister, appeared on the scene. Then Macnongan placed the sanction and blessing of the gods upon their marriage, assuring them that they had done right and that through them the world must be repeopled. He told them to return to their house, and whenever they were in trouble, to offer sacrifices to the gods. After Bugan had become convinced in this matter, they left Macnongan and returned home.
In the course of time, 9 children were born to Wigan and Bugan, 5 sons and 4 daughters, and from them are descended all of the people of the earth world. The youngest son, who was named Egon, had no wife.